and his ball screen defense is impressive. I mean, he's got a lot of different ways he can be successful against you, not to mention, having to be able to defend Ballantyne here. And, Evansville passes the basketball extremely well. They had 4 different guys that really understand passing, understand ball screen passing, and share the ball very well. So they're an impressive team to watch, and played well yesterday, and Loyola made a nice run, but we'll have our work cut out for us.
Thanks, Coach. At this time, we'll open it up for questions for Coach Ray Giacoletti of Drake.
To ask Coach a question, please press star 1. And your first question comes from the line of Dave Reynolds, Peoria Journal-Star.
Hi, Ray.
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Good. Your game at Bradley Saturday will be Bradley's 1,000th Valley game. And I guess it's appropriate it comes against Drake because you guys are charter members and you've had a long-standing good relationship with Bradley. I just wondered if you could kind of speak to that milestone and the relationship that the schools share.
Yeah, I had no idea until you mentioned it, but, obviously Drake and Bradley are schools that have been involved with the Missouri Valley Conference for a long time. Having grown up in Peoria, obviously know the great Bradley tradition over the years. So it is very unique that Bradley and Drake would play in that 1,000th game. I don't know a whole lot more, to say about it. I didn't even realize it until you just mentioned it. But, both programs going way back had storied traditions, and Bradley's obviously maintained that tradition over the years. You probably go back and look at a lot of different games with Bradley and Drake over the years, and fond memories of whether it be all the way back to '69 when Drake had the great teams, or to the Lewis Lloyd era, or I'm not quite sure, but I don't know if Fagley was at the Lloyd era right there too. But obviously some good games over the years.
And then, as far as your team now, how would you evaluate your team's psyche at this point? I know it's been a tough, long season for them. How are the kids holding up?
I think we've been pretty good. I thought our effort Saturday at Southern was really good. We just, I think like any team that has gotten, as many losses as we have this year, you start to get beat down, mentally a little bit, and not believe that you can be successful. But certainly our effort, we shot the ball 1 for 14 from 3, and it's going to be difficult to win a road game that way. But I thought our effort was really pretty good, and we just got to be able to knock some shots down. But we're, doing the best we can to try to finish as strong as we can, and I still believe we have a very good core here. We need to add a couple pieces to this, and these guys now become juniors and sophomores, and I think we do have a bright future ahead, but we need to add a couple pieces here.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
And your next question comes from the line of Jim Benson, Bloomington, Pantograph.
Ray, could you just talk a little bit about Anthony Bean? Obviously, he had a pretty big game against you guys, and how have you seen him develop in your 3 years in the league?
He is a guy that is really difficult to guard. Just he hits really tough shots. I mean, I think more than any other year right now, and maybe more than any other player in the league right now, a guy that can make difficult shots. And we obviously didn't do a great job on him with getting 31 on Saturday, but it's not just a one-man job. It's 5 guys being able to try to defend him. I think it's really a compliment to him because I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't think he was obviously signed at Illinois State. I don't think he was a highly recruited guy coming out of high school, and to watch his progress and the hard work he's put into it throughout 4 years now at Southern, and the job that those guys have done with him. He's one of the more dangerous guys in the league right now. So, not a guy that he not only can score the ball, but can shoot it, drive it, get to the free throw line. He's multi-dimensional. And I think it's helped him this year with having Rodriguez, and where he gets him off the ball a little bit more. But a very difficult guy to defend.
Thank you.
Yep.
Coach, it looks like that's your last question. Thanks so much for hopping on the line, and Mike will talk to you next week.
Thank you.
All right, we do have Coach Paul Lusk of Missouri State on the line. The Bears will have a game with Wichita State this week on the 18th on CBS Sports Network and Loyola on ESPN3. Coach, welcome to the call. How are you doing today?
Doing great, thank you.
All right, Coach, since we're running a little bit behind, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions from the media. Questions from the media for Coach Paul Lusk of Missouri State.
To ask Coach a question, please press star 1. And your first question comes from the line of Paul Swillen-Trump, Wichita Eagle.
Hey, Paul, when you get to mid-February, I think a lot of coaches start worrying about mental and physical kind of grind and fatigue. What kind of things do you do to combat that? And I guess with as many young players as you play, is it something maybe you watch more this year than in some others?
Well, I think you always have to be conscious of that. I think each particular team is a little bit different. Sometimes guys, they need to fight through it, and you need to be competitive. We've had some injuries. We've got to be smart with our depth. But today we're just going to do individuals and watch film, and then we'll come back and get ready and prepare for Wichita in the following days. But I think you have to be smart. I think you have to gauge your team and see where they're at. As long as they're giving great effort, maybe you don't go quite as long. I think everybody's probably cutting their practice time down a little bit, but I think it's different with each team, and we've got some young guys, so it's been hard for us because we've not been able to do a whole lot of 5-on-5 just with our guard situation, but yet we try to get some competitive stuff done each and every day. Even if they've logged a lot of minutes, just from the standpoint to let those young guys know that you got to bust through it. You got to come to work. So it's different. As I said, today we're just going to do individuals. We're going to stay away from any competitive stuff. We're going to lift, we're going to do film, and then we're just going to do individuals.
Thank you.
Again, to ask Coach a question, please press star 1.
Coach, that looks like that's your only line of questioning. Thanks so much for hopping on, and we'll let you go.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Coach. All right, we do have head coach Barry Hinton of Southern Illinois. The Salukis won their 20th game of the season. They will have Bradley coming up, a game that will be on Valley on ESPN3, and they'll have Evansville second half of the week on the 20th on the NBC TV network. Coach, how's it going?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for hopping on. I guess if you can, give us a brief preview of the matchup coming up with the Braves.
Well, I think this time of year everybody's got to play, and certainly Bradley's playing, I think, from what we've seen on film, their best basketball of the year. And, this is just the time of the year where everybody has to be focused game by game. It's not so much your opponent as it is your focus. And it's just the dog days of February, and you got to stay the course.
All right, thanks, Coach. Right now, open up for questions for Coach Barry Hinson of Southern Illinois.
To ask Coach a question, please press star 1. And your first question comes from the line of Dave Reynolds, Peoria Journal-Star.
Hi, Barry.
Hi, Dave.
Last week you seemed to have righted the ship after kind of a tough stretch there. What was happening during your swoon, and what brought you out of it?
I think there were several variables. I mean, first of all, we hadn't gone through a stretch like that as far as competitive. The Evansville game really caused a big stir for us because we lost a game which we shouldn't have lost. And it really had a huge effect. We had a lingering effect on us, and not only on the kids, but everybody included, fans and everybody. And then you wake up and you play Northern Iowa, which is playing their best basketball of the year, and then you've got to go to Wichita State, which at that time had, if they beat us, they'd have the nation's longest winning streak. And Greg was going for his 200th win that night at Wichita State. So, we just had a lot of variables that kind of ran into it, and then we came home, and Loyola just beat us. I mean, they did a good job. Porter and his kids were ready, and we were frozen. And I noticed, I thought we were fatigued. I thought we were mentally fatigued, and I did something earlier than I've ever done it before. We backed off our guys on practice, and our film sessions were cut way back. So we felt like we were a little bit fresher, and certainly winning on the road at Indiana State was huge for us. It was, I hate to say must win. I think every game's a must win game, so I don't think you can ever put a particular game ahead of another one, but we certainly needed to get a win for our psyche and our confidence. And then we were a little sluggish when we played Drake coming back home. We'd had 2 home losses in a row with Evansville and Loyola, and it took us a little while to get the kinks out, and we did, and we were fortunate enough because I tell you, I think Ray Giacoletti's team is probably the sleeper of the league. I believe that. I think these kids are extremely skilled, and I knew it would be a difficult game, and it was everything we could do, Dave, to shake those guys, and I think we're getting ready to play Bradley they're playing their best basketball of the year. I mean, they had 2 road games in a row where they score over 70 points, and they have not shown that earlier in the season, and now they're starting to score the basketball a lot better.
Thanks, Barry.
And your next question comes from the line of Jim Benson, Bloomington Pantagraph.
Barry, obviously Anthony Bean had a special week last week. You talk about this being the dog days of the season. Is he just seeing the finish line to his career and not putting the pedal down?
I think a lot of that has to do with it. I think certainly that and the maturation process has really taken effect. He realizes that he's the team's leader, and I think the motivating factor is the 3 previous seasons, what all he's been through. It's been a very difficult time for Anthony. I mean, you got a kid that could have gone to possibly a Big 10 school or a Big 12 school, and chose to be with his family, which is very admirable. But what this kid has gone through in the 3 previous years has been very difficult. And, I think you reap what you sow, and he's sowed hard work and determination, and he's reaping the benefits of those right now.
Thank you.
And your next question comes from the line of Paul Swillentrop, Wichita Eagle.
Hey, Barry, you mentioned the dog days here in mid-February. What kind of stuff do you do to, help your team through that kind of fatigue and wear down factor?
Well, Paul, I think there's 2 different fatigues, and I truly believe that both of them can paralyze you. I think there's a mental fatigue, and I think there's a physical fatigue. And it's just right now you've got an enormous amount of information going out. You have also the combination of everybody seeing the team for the second time around. Everybody knows everybody's secrets. I got tickled the other night. I'm at Indiana State, and I'm calling out a play, and Greg Lansing is on the other end is telling his team what we're going to do. They're running inbounds plays, and my assistant coach is getting up and yelling what they're getting ready to do. So, everybody knows what everybody's going to do. I mean, I watched the Wichita State game the other day, and I just said, this is what they're going to do, and this is what they're going to do, and you just know everything. And then so what we've done to combat that is we've cut our practices back, and we've cut our film sessions back, and we're trying to go extremely hard with a lot of energy and effort, but our time period is not as long as what it has been. A great relationship before we played Wichita State. The day before we played Wichita State, we went 2.5 hours, and that's too long at this time of year.
When Wichita State shows a little vulnerability like they have here recently, does that give you an opportunity to go to your players and say, hey, look, keep working? The MVC tournament may be a little more open, more possibilities than maybe what we thought, 2 weeks ago?
I don't think Wichita State's as vulnerable as what everybody thinks they are. They've struggled to make shots in the two games they got beat. They just struggled to make perimeter shots, and everybody goes through that, Paul. So I don't know how vulnerable they are. I mean, they're still the best team in the league. I think everybody's chasing them. I do think, they ran up against two teams that are incredibly hot right now. Illinois State's the most athletic team in the league, and Northern Iowa's probably the hottest team and playing the best basketball in the league right now. So everybody goes through this, but it's kind of like the Big 12 runs through Lawrence. Well, the Missouri Valley's going to run through Wichita until somebody proves them different.
Thank you.
And your next question comes on the line of Todd Hefferman, Southern Newspaper.
Barry, your schedule puts you up against Evansville and Illinois State. How important is the 2 seed to you? Is there a big difference between the 2 seed and the 3 seed when you're possibly playing a play-in winner at the tournament if you get the 2 seed?
Todd, I don't think you can do any of that right now. I think you just have to. I think you have to keep your head pointed in the right direction, and you just have to keep your nose to the grindstone. We got caught up in that even when the streak was going on, the losing streak. We got caught up in conference numbers, conference race, and that's one of the things I visited with the team and the staff about. Let's just go back to focusing one game at a time. So we don't even talk about it. We're not going to win any tiebreakers, and we know that we're going to have to do whatever we do. We're going to have to do it outright, and so we've just got to. Our biggest concern right now is Bradley.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Again, to ask Coach a question.
Barry, I think that's all the questions we have, so we'll let you go, and hopefully Mike will be back next week to talk to you.
Okay, buddy. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, Barry. We have reached out to Coach Marty Simmons of Evansville. We were alerted here in the conference office that they may be traveling as they had a change of plans in their itinerary. So we will go ahead and try to reach out to Coach Porter Mosier of Loyola. So please hang with us 1 second while we try to get Coach Porter Mosier on the line. All right, we do have Coach Porter Mosier of Loyola. The Ramblers this week will have Northern Iowa, a game that we broadcast on Comcast Sportsnet, and the Ramblers will also take on Missouri State on ESPN3 on the 21st. Coach, how's it going today?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, thanks so much for hopping on. I guess if you can, give us a brief preview of the matchup coming up with Northern Iowa.
Well, they're arguably the hottest team in the league, winning that many in a row, and just an amazing victory at Wichita State. Watching the defenses in that game is just, just incredible. I mean, to hold Wichita to 50 at their place, it's an amazing defensive effort. Obviously, defending the three-point line with their shooters. I think Carlson and Cook have really played well and emerged. Just typical Northern Iowa. Their coaching staff developing guys. They've just developed those guys. Are getting better and better, along with their, the big four they got.
All right, Coach, thank you very much. At this time, we'll open it up for questions from the media. Questions for Coach Porter Moser.
To ask Coach a question, please press star 1. Again, to ask Coach a question, please press star 1.
Coach, looks like there's nothing in the queue for you. Well, it'll be a quick week for you, so thanks for hopping on, and hopefully Mike will be back to talk to you next week.
All right, thank you. Good luck.
All right, thank you. We are a little bit ahead of schedule, so we will hold the line as we wait for Bradley head coach Brian Wardle. While we wait for Coach Brian Wardle to dial in, just a couple of notes for media. The league will have its Player of the Week announcements as usual today, but the full men's basketball weekly notebook from Mike will come out tomorrow with Wichita State having a game tonight, so you're looking for that tomorrow. And right now we are joined by Bradley head coach Brian Wardle. Coach, how's it going this morning?
Good. How are you guys?
Thank you so much for hopping on a little bit early. Mike is out, so this is Derek subbing in for him, so I appreciate you hopping on a little early as we are a little bit ahead of schedule.
No problem. No problem at all.
All right, this week you guys will have Southern Illinois and Drake, both games on the Valley on ESPN3. I guess if you can, go ahead and give us a preview of your matchup with the Salukis.
Well, just looking at them, obviously Bean's been hot and playing very well, and as a group, they spread the floor out very well. They drive and kick you. They get out in transition. I think defensively, they do a lot of ball pressure and try to speed you up a little bit. And, I think we're going to have to go in there, and obviously on the road, we got to take care of the basketball and make good decisions against a pressure D. And we're obviously going to be prepared for some zone. But overall, we can't let Bean get going. I think when when he goes for 30 or 25 or more, they're very tough to beat, and we got to contain Rodriguez in transition. So, again, it comes down to doing a really good job on those guards, but also watching them try to go inside on us, as most teams have tried to do this year, especially with Bola and O'Brien. So, we got our hands full, but we're looking forward to the challenge after a tough loss yesterday, and we're going to move forward today and get a little better.
Thank you, Coach. At this time, we'll open it up for questions for Coach Brian Wardle of Bradley from the media.
To ask Coach a question, please press star 1. And your first question comes from the line of Paul Swillentrop, Wichita Eagle.
Hey, Brian, when you've got so many freshmen that are getting through their first college basketball season, how do you deal with managing and keeping an eye on their kind of mental and physical fatigue at this point of the season?
Well, that's where you got to talk to, you got to have a relationship with your players, talk to them one-on-one, get them to open up about it. And I respect players that aren't going to complain about it or say things, but you get them one-on-one setting and just let them know that we're in this together, and how will you play in February and going into March has a lot to do with what kind of legs you have. And so I'm very cautious. I think talking to your trainers, your doctors, we're pretty sore. We're pretty banged up right now. Obviously, I got a lot of freshmen that have played a ton of minutes. We were just in a very physical game yesterday. I got a sophomore, Dante Thomas, who didn't play much last year, but has played a lot this year. And he's, everyone's a little sore, across the country, but for their bodies that we're not as physically strong as most teams, I got to be very cautious and be very smart about that, because I think fresh legs, fresh mind in February and March really leads to wins.
Does that mean you cut back on practices? Do you do more individual stuff, less scrimmaging? What kind of changes does that bring?
I think I think what wears kids out and players out is the contact. So we've had non-contact days and individual work, skill work a lot this February, and even late January. And I think the contact is what you got to be cautious about: the hitting, the scrimmaging, the rebounding drills, whatever you may do. I think that's what you got to do less of, and we have, and we're going to continue to do that down the stretch. Even though we're a young team and we need as many reps as we can, I still think if I practice too long and we scrimmage too much and we just rep, I'm really not giving us a good chance to compete at a high level and come game time, because we'll be too physically worn down and possibly even mentally with so many young guys.
Thank you.
And your next question comes from the line of Todd Heffernan, Southern Newspaper.
Hey, Brian, what's the biggest improvement you think Thomas and Ben Bray have made in the last 2 weeks or last month?
I think they've just slowed down a little bit offensively, making better decisions. Dante's kind of got his second wind a little bit. His activity level's still high. All of them are playing too many minutes right now for how young they are, to be quite honest. I think a lot of our guys would be just as effective with 10 less minutes and probably produce the same as what they're getting now. So I think they've just gotten used to the minutes, been able to slow down offensively, starting to understand some concepts a little bit more. But we got to continue to get better and play smarter and just make better decisions on defensive end without not fouling it offensively, just being a little more patient at times. But they have gotten better as the year's gone on, and we definitely can show that on film easily to them.
And what's the biggest improvement you think you've seen out of Bola when you look at the first time you played him and how he's playing right now for Southern?
Well, I just think he's obviously a physical big man that we've struggled to guard this year with us. I think he really understands his role, and he tries to be a star in his role. I think that's one thing that's helped the Southern Illinois success is Coach has got him, Barry's got them bought into the roles. They've accepted it, and now they're trying to be a star in their role, and I think good teams do that. And I think he really has done that, and he understands what his role is, and he tries to execute it every single night.
Thanks.
And your next question comes from the line of Harry Schroeder, Valley Hoops Insider.
Hey, Brian, maybe the answer to each question is the same, meaning you've got so many freshmen, but very interested obviously in Ronnie Suggs, because he's from our part of the world here in the St. Louis area. Obviously, he's been scoring a lot more for you lately. Just talk about his development. Like I said, probably the answers are the same a lot, but talk about him.
Yeah, I think Ronnie's done a great job. Just from a physical standpoint, he's battled, even though he's a little undersized when it comes to strength-wise. He's a 6'6", 175 guy that I'm playing 35 minutes or more a game right now. I think with the loss of Cadero Beller, one senior, he's had to up his minutes. We've had him bring the ball up a little bit for us, just initiate our offense, which I think's just helped him, get a feel for the ball a little bit more and a little more confidence, and we put Blaine off the ball. And so I just think we've tweaked some plays and some sets to try to get him some shots and get him in positions to score. So I think, all those things have helped him, but it just comes down to he's a little more confident, and he's, like I said about Luke and Dante, it's slowing down for him a little bit now. Teams try to speed us up so much every game. I think our guys have just gotten used to that. The denials, the traps, the switching. They're trying to make our young group make decisions, which I would do the same thing. So we just try to do our best in practice to prepare them. And I think just it's starting to click a little bit on how to make those reads and how to just face up, be strong with the ball, and slow down a little bit.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coach, that looks like that's all the questions for you this week. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. A couple seconds ahead of schedule, dialing out to Coach Dan Moeller of Illinois State right now, so we'll hang on 1 second as we reach out to Coach Dan Moeller. And we do have Coach Dan Moeller with us. The Redbirds this week will have games against Indiana State and Northern Iowa, the game against Indiana State on the Valley on ESPN3, and versus UNI on the CBS Sports Network. Coach, how's it going today?
Morning, going great. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for joining us. I guess if you can, go ahead and give us a preview of the matchup with the Sycamores coming up on the 17th.
Yeah, they beat us the first time, and everyone knows how dangerous they are. You can't take their recent games as if they're not the team that can come in here and beat us, because they certainly can. We've been playing pretty well. Didn't guard very well in the last game, I didn't think, but obviously another big home game with only 2 home games left.
All right. Thanks, Coach. At this time, we'll open it up for questions from the media for Coach Dan Moeller of Illinois State.
To ask Coach a question, please press star 1. And your first question comes from the line of Jim Benson, Bloomington, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Dan. Nick Banyard has really kind of turned it up a little bit here in the last 2 weeks. He had some good games, obviously, earlier in the season, but wasn't consistent. Where do you think the consistency is coming from in the last 2 weeks in his game?
Hey, Jim. It all started when he wasn't scoring the ball, but he was still playing really well, a couple, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And he found his offensive rhythm as he continued to play the right way, in addition to getting extra shots up. But we've talked about, Jim, he accepted that he can impact the game and be a really good player even when he's not making shots. And the crazy thing is, when you accept that, you start making more shots. So Nick's had a great attitude, been really good in practice, been high energy, and really turned a couple games around for us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And your next question comes from the line of Harry Schroeder, Valley Hoops Insider.
Hey, Dan, when I watch you guys, Derek keeps talking about the ESPN3 thing. We love being able to watch your games constantly. You guys seem so unselfish. Is that something you've really had to work on, or something that they have taken on their own? I mean, you guys seem to make the extra pass over and over and over.
Yeah, hey, Harry, thanks. I'm glad you noticed it, because if you watched us in the non-conference, you take the U and the N out of that word, and that's what we were offensively. We struggled a lot. Our offense was pretty bad in the first part of the season. And it's not blatant selfishness. We just were making the wrong plays in the paint. We were trying to force shots. We thought we had to do it all on our own, especially when we started losing games. So we've worked on it since, honestly, the first game at San Diego State. It just took us a while to figure it out, and there's no surprise that our offense is much more efficient now.
And Nick continues to get more and more time, and he's hitting big shots for you, isn't he?
He's hitting big shots. He's getting a lot of time, and there's not a lot of secret. The better you play, usually the more time you get, and we've got great depth right now. You know, we're only playing 8, and sometimes you only play 8, but the truth is all 8 of those guys sometimes play the same number of minutes. You look at our game yesterday, and one guy played 31 minutes. After that, it was 25, 24, 27, 24, 26. 20. So Nick has given us great depth. He can play starters minutes when he's playing well, which he has been, and it helps when you're in foul trouble or there's fatigue. Your guys just aren't locked in.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Good luck.
Thanks, Harry.
Your next question comes from the line of Paul Swillentrop, Wichita Eagle.
Hello, Dan. Illinois State is 2 games out. Do you feel like this hot streak has put you in a position where you're kind of in the race, kind of in the picture for first place?
Hey, Paul, I wouldn't say that yet. Until I feel like we can control our own destiny, that's not something that we'll think about. And obviously right now we can't. What we can do, of course, is continue to take care of our part of it. And if things shake out like that, they do. But we haven't talked about first, second, third, fourth, ninth, 10th. And like I said, the biggest thing for me is until we can control our own destiny, that stuff doesn't matter to me.
Thank you.
I
think that's all the questions for you this week. So we'll go ahead and let you go. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We will hold us a couple minutes. We're a little bit ahead of schedule as we try to reach Coach Greg Marshall. Of course, the Shockers have a game today, actually, taking on New Mexico State in a makeup game. That game will be on ESPN3. So we'll reach out to Coach Greg Marshall. So hang with us 1 second. And we do have Wichita State head coach Greg Marshall on the line. Coach, really appreciate you taking time. I know it's a game day for you guys. Thanks for hopping on the call.
You're welcome.
If you can, you guys have New Mexico State, a game that's the makeup game, and you also will be taking on Missouri State and Indiana State, the game tonight on ESPN3, Missouri State on CBS Sports Network. If you can, go ahead and give us a brief preview of what you can tell us about the non-traditional non-conference matchup here in the middle of February against New Mexico State.
Yeah, it's just a makeup, Derek. We tried to wedge this in between games. Saturday, I guess Thursday. When do we play Missouri State? I don't even know. Wednesday or Thursday?
And that'll be the 18th. Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. So we thought we had a break here. Just to wedge it in. They couldn't make it back on December 28th, so they're pretty good. They usually win their league. They've got a pro in Pascal Siakam. He averages like 22 and 13. Really good size. They've got a big 7'3" kid and another 6'11" besides Siakam, who's 6'9". So it'll be an interesting challenge out of conference at this stage of the game, but you have to do those things when you're put in the situation we were when they couldn't make their flight.
All right, thanks, Coach. At this time, we will open it up for questions from the media for Coach Greg Marshall of Wichita State.
To ask Coach a question, please press *1. And your first question comes from the line of Harry Schroeder, Valley Hoops Insider.
Hey, good morning, Greg. We do appreciate your time today. How tough is it for the quick turnaround for this game? You kind of answered it. You had a little bit of a gap, but is it hard on your guys this late in the season to turn right around and play?
Well, I really don't know the answer to that, Harry. It just depends on how they come out tonight, and it's certainly not ideal. We could use the practice time, but when we scheduled it, we knew that this was the best gap. We weren't traveling. Saturday was home and Thursday was home, so we had 4 or 5 days there to put it in, and they were in Chicago, so they flew from Chicago, I guess, Saturday night or Sunday morning. So they're in here in plenty of time, I assume. So it's not perfect, but again, it's the best we can do.
I know you dropped that one home game, but when I watch your games, I haven't been able to get there, but when I watch your games on TV, I'm amazed at your incredible fan support there. Can you just talk a little bit about the Wichita fans?
Yeah, they since I've been here, it's been a sellout. I mean, I don't know how many games in a row that is, but it's a lot of them. And, we don't have football, so they really enjoy basketball, and Kansas is a basketball state. They're very knowledgeable fans. They're very loyal fans. They travel well. And, it's been a good union because we've given them a good product in the last handful of seasons, and they've supported us with their dollars and their presence in the seats, and they give us a great home court advantage.
Thanks a lot, Greg. Good night. Good luck tonight.
Thanks, Aaron.
Again, to ask a question, please press star 1.
It looks like that's all we've got for you this week. Thanks so much for taking time on the game day, and good luck tonight.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. This does conclude the weekly men's basketball coaches call. Thanks so much for joining, and Mike will be back next week.
Thank you for joining today's conference call. You may now disconnect.